Guys, I feel like we have been talking forever about Alphonso Davies and where he's going to end up. Is he going to stay with Bayern Munich? Is he going to make the move to Real Madrid? And it appears we may have our answer by this weekend. Yay! Yeah, well,
Are you hopeful?
I doubt it.
Are you hopeful? Fingers crossed.
You know what? I'm hopeful because for the player's sake, I feel like for Alphonso Davies, I want him to be somewhere where he knows it's going to be home, where he can establish himself, where he can just flourish and do what we know he does best. And then, of course, whenever he reports to the national team, we don't have to talk about this anymore. We can just talk about how he's playing and how he's representing Canada. Just wouldn't that be nice? And I'm sure the player himself would love this. So here's the latest on what we know, everybody. So it turns out that Bayern, they obviously want to keep him. He's flourishing under the new head coach and Vincent Kompany. So it sounds like they have offered him a 5-year, they've offered him a deal worth 25 million euros. Don't know the term yet, but it's 25 million euros a year, which would make him the second highest paid player on the team behind Harry Kane. Real Madrid, it sounds like, has offered him 5 years, 20 million euro. So if we were to play this game of pros and cons, of the pros of Bayern Munich and the cons, the pros of Real Madrid and the cons. Let's play this game. And then let's ultimately be the advisors for Alphonso Davies. So Ollie, if Alfonso's tuning into this show and he wants to play a little game of pros and cons, let's start with Bayern.
I don't know if you want to advice.
Do you want to start with the pros? Come on. Let's go.
Come on, Ali.
Okay, firstly, can I just say I don't believe any of this crap? Like, if I think the 25 million report that Bayern had offered him that came from Spain, and no disrespect, but Spain in terms of transfer rumors, it's like mayhem over there. There's like a million different outlets reporting a million different things, and I don't think much of it is credible. So I think if he's already been offered that by Bayern, he would have signed it. Like that, like it says, would make him one of the highest paid players at the club.
Yeah,
behind only Harry Kane. So I find that difficult to believe, and it's difficult to root through like what's true and what isn't here. Mm-hmm. What was your question? Pros on Bayern?
Yeah, on that end, and I know you needed to get that off your chest.
Yeah.
On that end, that is what we're hearing, that Alphonso Davies is not pleased with the offer from Bayern Munich, which and he's going to get. And that made me scratch my head too, because I'm like, what is there to think about with 25 million euro a year? But anywho. Okay, so what would be the pros of staying with Bayern?
I mean, just that the grass isn't always greener. Bayern is a top club. He's settled there. He gets a chance to win major trophies, pretty much every major trophy going every year there. And I think there's obviously been a big uptick in his own form, which is great because it's put him in a great position now, I think, in a contract year. Since Vincent Kompany came in. He's probably playing his best football since they won the Champions League in his early years there. So I think I'll give you a little spoiler. I think if the opportunity to go to Real Madrid is there, he should do it. Like that's a once in a lifetime thing. But there are far worse things in the world for a player than being a Bayern Munich starter every week and playing for that club. So it's good options here that he seems to have. And I don't think there should be disappointment if he re-signs with Bayern.
Okay. What do you think are pros of Bayern, Jordan?
He's comfortable. I mean, people speaking about Bayern, all the clubs that he should go to. Bayern is a top club in the world. Yeah. Like, I only think that the situation when I think about Alphonso Davies is that Bayern is the girl that he dated in high school when he had ashy knees. And then now he can maybe go on to greener pastures because, he's older and maybe wants different things. Yeah, I know. Everyone's out there, the girlfriend from high school, and everyone's like, oh my gosh, you're disrespecting me. But here's my point. Let me land my plane. Is that he's been there and he's done that and he's won things there. Big things, by the way. UEFA Cups, league titles. And he's grown there. But it's okay if he wants to go and make a move. Now, if he does it and he wants to stick with that girl and he wants to go the distance, that is fine too. But I think it's very hard to turn down a deal if Real Madrid comes knocking on your door. I've said this for the past 18 months.
Guys, stick to the pros of Bayern.
The pros of Bayern is it's a top club. It's a top club that he knows. He's comfortable. He knows how to thrive there. He's playing, as Ollie said, his best football under Vincent Kompany. And Bayern will always be there. 10 years down the road, they will be there. They'll be a top club the way that their farm team, their amateurs, the way that they're built up. They get the best of the crop in Germany. Yeah, they'll be there. So I guess that's the plus, but it's hard because that shiny new toy whether it be
We'll get
Real
to that.
Madrid. Okay.
We'll get to that. But it seems like the
It's
pros
tough.
we're all talking about is comfortability, familiarity, new coach who he's thriving under, guaranteed starter, guaranteed always challenging for a league title, guaranteed being in Champions League and challenging for that. And it also seems another pro is there seems to be now stability off the pitch, because there was some craziness going on behind the scenes before, and presidents and board members and whatever. So there seems to be some stability finally there, right? So those are your pros. But if you were going to look at your cons of staying at Bayern, what would that be, Ollie?
Just that I think it kind of feels like time, to Jordan's point, maybe for something different. And you don't know if the opportunity, there's not going to be many times in your career where certainly not when you're in a position like this, where you're out of contracts and you can move on a free transfer, and the flexibility that offers you. So I think at the age he's at now, he's had several years at Bayern because he started so young there. It's been, a decent amount of time now. It just feels like he is the type of player at the top of his game who is ready for something different, a different country, a different challenge, different teammates. And a bit like, again, a big part of the cons with Bayern are the pros with Real Madrid, to be honest. That's kind of the case that I think you would make against staying.
Mm-hmm. You got any cons?
Yeah, I mean, a coach growing up told me that your third deal is the one that is the cash money one. And this is going to prove true for Alphonso Davies, right? The first one, you're just lucky to play. You'll play for peanuts and some beans. You just want, and maybe that was Vancouver Whitecaps for him, right? This stellar kid on the block, 2018 Bayern Munich. You didn't know how great he would be. Now for me, you can't go past three names and not put Alphonso Davies as the best left back in the world. I'll put him up there as number one. But for argument's sake, we'll just put him in top three. The next deal at 24 years old for Alphonso Davies is the cash money. He needs to be walking around with the mink, the Andy Petrillo mink. I know you got it in your closet somewhere. That big. Hey, sorry. Yes. No cruelty. But what I'm trying to say is the cons of the deal is with Bayern is the fact that this is the time to move. Like, if you're going to go and make a jump in your career, if you're going to go sink or swim, whether it be a big cash move or the club or country you always want to be in, of course, maybe down the road you could do it at 28. But you look at the Roy Keanes, players in the world where they stick for one club for so long, and they're like, when they had that offer, they're like, I maybe should have just tried it and just see if I could swim, see if I could do something different. Now's that time for Alphonso Davies. I know people don't want to hear that, but that's the facts. At 24, this will be the time for him to make the big money move or the move that he always wanted to make.
So it also sounds like the two things that could be pros, which are familiarity and being comfortable with the club, can also be cons, because you want to be able to shake it up and move on over. And you're right. Beans and wieners seem to have been maybe in the beginning. Now it's all about, where's that filet mignon wrapped in
no hamburger helper? That's over with. We don't eat that anymore.
Okay, so here we go. What about now when you look at Real Madrid, what would be, and maybe we'll wrap this in two here, Ollie, what would be pros and cons of Real Madrid?
Well, I mean, like, I think there are some players who, like, I think back to, like, Manchester United had a lot of these situations, when they were at the top of European football, was they had top-class players who didn't want to do anything else other than play for Manchester United. So Scholes, Giggs, guys like that who stayed their whole career. And then they had some players who wanted to do something else. Beckham, Ronaldo, guys like that who decided to move on, and often it was Real Madrid. And which one is Alphonso Davies is the question. I don't know the answer to that. But I just think if Real Madrid are genuinely interested, and you look at the collection of players they've got right now that he would be playing with, and you don't take that offer if it is there, and we don't know that it definitely is, are you not kind of wondering about that for the rest of your career? You're not thinking back and thinking, like, what if I'd taken that and tried that? I just think it would be very difficult to say no to, personally.
I feel like we have to put it into context too, Andy. It's like, I was looking over the numbers, and someone like Philip Lam, and back in the day, top right back, left back, midfield, just a phenomenal player, but grew up in Munich, played over 300 matches for that club, and it's going to be revered forever. But the issue for me is he's German. I'm like, Alphonso Davies is Canadian. Homeboy can go wherever he wants and make that place home. And I'm like, it's totally fine if at the end of his career he goes and plays 450 games for Bayern Munich. And it would probably be more than that if he has a 10-year career. But that would be a crazy number to think about. But that's fine. But in the back of our heads, the Canadian heads, the people that are supporting him and looking at him, you always wonder, could he have made that jump? And how would he have done if he made that jump? And for me, there's only certain clubs that are bigger than Bayern Munich. Real Madrid's being one of them.
It sounds like a lot of people kind of want him to make this move because, to your point, it is going to another big club. It is going to a big league. And if the money makes sense, and here's the other thing that we don't know about, it's a lot of stuff behind the scenes when it comes to, signing bonuses, when it comes to any kind of other bonuses that you work on whether it's playing games or whether it's a goal scored or, starts, all that kind of stuff. A lot of times that can get worked into contracts and even marketing dollars. Sometimes clubs take more of that money. Sometimes they allow the player to keep more of that money. What are the tax situations in certain countries? These are all things that also have to come into play when we discuss cashing in. Right. So when it comes to cashing in, that's where Alphonso and his agent are going to have to work really hard to figure out what makes sense. And then from here, I'm going to use the word, from a legacy standpoint, where does Alphonso think he's going to be a legend? You stay with Bayern, you're a Bayern legend. I think we feel like we know that. If you go to Real Madrid, are you going to increase that legacy and suddenly just, take it to a whole other level? Or is that going to, be a gamble that doesn't pay off? And who knows?
Pay off for everyone. Yeah.
Great point.
Yeah. So there you go. So there's a lot so basically, Alphonso, if you're watching the show, we have helped you not one bit on your.
You got options. pick a hand. You got options.
I think you got to assess how interested Real Madrid actually are. Like, if they seem very keen on Trent Alexander-Arnold right now, and there's a lot of rumors around him.
Right.
If Davies is getting the same feeling that he's as wanted as that, and they really want to make him a Real Madrid player, I don't think there's a question you do it. But it's just like the level of that interest, right? Is it a club that really wants you, or is it a club taking an opportunity to sign a player for free because he's available?
And they've said that. Like, they made it perfectly clear they weren't going to pay any transfer fee for him. They were more than happy to wait for his deal to run out. Like, they've been very, not that I want to say they're not interested and they don't want him, but I also feel like the messaging from Real Madrid has been way more nonchalant. Whereas from Bayern, it's, we want this guy. We want him. Like, I don't know, whatever that means. And again, only Alphonso knows behind the scenes the true messaging. But it seems like it's a little bit more like, if he comes to Real Madrid, he comes. If he doesn't, he doesn't. Whereas Bayern wants him. I don't know. Anyways, so we'll see where that leads. Hopefully we get our answer by the weekend. We're also looking for answers when it comes to Jonathan David, because I feel like this is a saga we've been discussing for a very long time. And if he stays, if he leaves Lille, and if he does leave, where is that going to go? And we know that this is it, right, Ollie? Like, this is the final month that we know Lille can sell him, because then his contract is up, then he can walk for free. Sayonara, and we'll see if he does go anywhere. But what is the latest when it comes to all these numerous high-profile clubs that are interested in arguably one of the best, strikers we've seen, definitely in CONCACAF, if not putting him up there in the world?
Yeah, I go back to my previous answer of who knows what's real and what's not here, right?
I'm here for the hard-hitting answers on one side.
I think it's so difficult to really gauge what's real. Manchester United have been mentioned a lot. I'm not sure I see that. We can get onto them and how they may or may not be a fit. Arsenal need a striker. Gabriel Jesus is injured for the rest of the season. But here's the problem: they do, which is what Jordan said. They need one now, and I don't see Jonathan David moving in this window. So that one seems like a little bit of a tricky fit. I think, for me, the perfect club for Jonathan Davies, when I look at the success of the club, the position they're in now, and also the way they would play and the way he would fit in, I think Liverpool would be the absolutely perfect place for him. But is that something that's going to materialize? I have no idea.
Mm-hmm. Okay. Well, here's the thing, and this is what starts to swirl in my head, because you look at what he's doing for Lille, and in particular, you also look at Champions League and how well they're doing there. And if big money comes a call in, Jordan, are their hands tied? Because Lille's president has publicly said they do not want to move on from Jonathan David. They want him, right? A, if big money comes calling, do they sell? And B, what do you think that says to their fans if they do sell him in this January window when it comes to Champions League? Are they basically saying, we think we can do it without him? Or I'm just wondering the messaging you even send to your fans if you were to sell him in this window, and kind of the risk that they're taking.
No, I'm picking up what you're putting down, but yeah, I think that boat has sailed. He'll be playing February 1st, he'll be playing for Lille. He's not going. I think when they had their chance to sell him, whether it be the summer, even last summer, that has gone and passed. Jonathan David is looking at this situation saying, I'm in a perfect place at Lille. I'm playing Champions League. I'm the preferred number 9. I'm in form, and you can't go past 3-4 other strikers in the world that are more efficient than me when I step on the pitch. He is going to, again, have that Andy Petrillo Buffalo. This guy in the summer is gone to wherever he wants to go. Liverpool is a fantastic shout, Ali. Like, you look at this, and I've heard at least a dozen clubs that are like, oh, Jonathan David's going here in the summer. I don't even know anymore. You've turned me around. You've dropped me off in a remote place, blindfolded, and spun me around. I have no clue where he's going. What I do know is that he's made a case to be a starting number 9 in a top club. Premier League seems very, very warm, and it's heating up for me. Club, again, I don't know. I just, there's a world where if he's actually going to Manchester United, and after hear Wheels talk about Jonathan David and Manchester United, it seemes like 2025 might be very, very, very long for all of us.
Yes.
But
well, why don't we talk about Manchester United?
I mean, do I think that's a good fit for him? I think the Premier League is a good fit for him. I think that club that has been struggling for a while would benefit from a guy like that. But I just don't want to see a world where he's coming off the bench more often than he's starting. Mm-hmm. And then there's just question marks with Manchester United. I think he's more than good enough to put in a shift and be starting 80, 90% of the time. But will that happen under a club, for me, that's just made so many changes in the past 5 years? You probably want some stability as a player, but I love that Jonathan David's in that position now to pick and choose and refuse and put that down and be like, you have to give me a couple more million. Like, he's that good. He's that efficient in front of goal where he'll make the right fit. But he's got to play. Can't be on the bench.
Here's a question I have for you guys. Like, Manchester United are 14th in the Premier League right now. Yeah. And I think that's obviously it's Manchester United. It's still a massive club. I think there's also other clubs in the Premier League that might not be kind of the traditional title contenders that I think could be interesting for Jonathan Davies. But how much is it? Do you go to like a Davies type club, a club that's going to be in contention for the biggest silverware every year, versus other considerations like playing time and fit and things like that? I think that's something he's going to have to weigh up.
I wonder too, Ali, if Jonathan Davies is the type of player where you think about like big fish, little pond. Like, sometimes you can go to a big club and the club is so big, so rich in history. So many players have been there. Obviously, Lille is rich in history in their own right. But if you're looking at world football, right? You're going to a big club. All of a sudden, you're a little fish in a big pond. I think it might serve him well, being that, still keeping that in his career. Big fish, little pond, knowing that he's going to play, knowing that you're almost playing up to bigger teams at times. And then he can show what he's worth. Because there are still a lot of doubters and haters and like, oh, Jonathan David, he's doing it in a farm league. Like, he can't do it in the big time. So if you go to I don't want to say Southampton, but if you go to
I have a wild card club in that regards.
I love it.
And they're actually second in the Premier League right now, so that you could say that they are up near the top. But Nottingham Forest, like, they are a very ambitious
Jimmy would be
club.
happy.
It would be the kind of move where I think a lot of people would look at it and go, "Oh my, Nottingham Forest! Like, that's not Liverpool, that's not Arsenal or whoever." But they're really ambitious. They need a striker. They tried to sign a couple of pretty high-profile strikers in the summer, including Santiago Jimenez of Mexico. Didn't get them. And there are established links between David's representation and the people at Forest, including the ownership. So I think that something like that, I think, could be an interesting wild cards, as much as people will look at the biggest names.
And they play attractive football that would suit him very, very, very seamlessly.
I mean, this is what Jonathan David and his camp decide, but you do also get the sense with David is that he's not chasing big names, big clubs. Like, that's the other thing, right? Like, I know that rumors have swirled around him in the past, but he's always come out and said, I'm happy here at Lille and what I'm able to do. And to your point, he is there. I mean, they did win the league a couple of years ago. They do continue to challenge for that. They're, perennial contenders as well, being in Champions League. Like, he's in these high profile competitions and he never seems to want more. And I'm not saying that in a way that it's not that he's not ambitious, but he doesn't seem to be a chaser. So he will make a decision that's right for him. And to your point, Am I going to get that playing time? Am I going to have the ability to score? Am I going to be that number 9? Am I going to, check, 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 check. You get that sense that that's a lot of thought that he puts into it. And to your point, he's not going to be like, well, if Man United is interested in me, I got to go to them. But they're sitting like near the bottom.
They'd be blinded by history. Yeah.
Right now watch him go and sign with Man United. But anyways, there's a reason why they call him the Iceman. This guy does have ice in his veins. And I don't think it's just on the pitch. I think off the pitch, he's very, he's chill. He's like, listen, I'll make my decision when I make my decision. You just don't get that sense that he is easily swayed.
Yeah.
Well, and speaking of, obviously, some of the things that we always get concerned about when a player makes a move, right, is playing time. And a lot of us were very excited to see Tajon Buchanan move on and do what he was able to do and sign with Inter Milan. Obviously, setback with injuries. And that's been unfortunate for him. And, having a broken leg, he was always dealing with like a quad kind of hamstring injury. Then, of course, breaks his leg in training when he was with the national camp. And he's been struggling, Ollie, to get that playing time. Do you think that there's rumors that he could get loaned out to Roma? What do you think, what would happen there with a loan? Would that benefit him? What are your overall thoughts on kind of what's happening with Tajon Buchanan?
He needs something. He needs to play games. Like, since he joins Inter, which is just over a year ago now, he's played 279 minutes of club football. So 3 games, essentially. Like, he's got to go somewhere and play. I don't care if they play with wing backs. I don't care if he's playing on the wing or whatever it is. Just get on the pitch. And it's been really tough for him. I think it was always going to be difficult to get regular minutes at Inter, and that was always going to be a big challenge for him to make that breakthrough. And then you break your leg and you miss the whole preseason and the start of the season, and it just makes it a really difficult ask at a club like that. So he needs to go somewhere and play.
Mm.
The difference between a 25-year-old that plays and that doesn't, it's so crucial right now at the age you're in, because I think that period when you're a teenager, late teens, and you go into early 20s, people kind of accept that you're kind of learning your trade and you're getting your feet under you in the professional world. And Tajon Buchanan catapulted onto the scene. I don't care what anyone tells me. This past World Cup that the men were at, he was the most efficient. He was the best player that we had. And to see, obviously, the injury, and I know the quality that he possesses, but you have to play. The window from 24 to 28, it doesn't even matter for me if it's a division lower. I know that's not the case for Tajon. I know he's going to play at the highest division, but the difference between a player that is playing and has confidence and one who plays here and there, it's huge. That is a time to really push yourself and to show what you're worth. So he has to move to a club where he's getting burned and he's playing.
All right. Why don't we make our way closer to home now in Canada, because we know when it comes to CPL, we've been waiting for some announcements of new head coaches. That has been made, some other teams, and now Atletico Ottawa has finally announced their new head coach, gentlemen. And it is a former Liga MX player who has some assistant jobs under his belt and 1 year of head coaching, and that is Diego Mejia. So what are your thoughts on Ottawa's new hire, Ollie?
Yeah, it's an interesting one, and obviously there has been a Mexican slant to how Atletico Ottawa are kind of rebuilding this club. I felt like Fernando Lopez, their previous CEO, I think was one of the better executives in the CPL. I think you can see by the job he went on to, he got a great job in Spain on the back of this, and that I think was a reflection of the kind of reputation that he established for himself. So when he left, I feel like from the outside looking in, at least, it left a hole and it drifted a little bit with Atletico Ottawa. And now they're trying to put the pieces back in place to really have some direction. So new CEO from Mexico, head coach from Mexico. I don't know exactly what the plans are. We'll have to wait and hear what they say, as preseason starts here. But I think it's good for this club to have, those positions sorted out and have some proper direction from the key leaders of the club.
Yeah, this was a club, Jordan, as we know. I mean, they made the biggest splash last year in the offseason with getting some big name players and, of course, fell short. And now this is a team without Ollie Bassett, Mateo Di Brian, and Ruben Del Campo. They're not going to be returning, 3 very important players. Just what kind of challenges do you think are ahead for the new, head coach here in being able to get this team kind of back on track, so to say?
Yeah, I think their identity is huge, right? I think the Atletico Ottawa that we've seen probably since their inception, but we'll say the last 2.5 years, just been very defensive minded and sometimes a bit mundane, a bit boring. How are you going to turn that around. Are they going to be an attacking team? I think they should be. I think when you have a stadium like they do and the support that they do and getting over 7,000 every week when you play at home and being in the nation's capital and the players that you have in your team, the Blue Tablas, like you have Didic, Aparicio is probably one of the most coveted players in the league. You have to play an up-tempo type of football, but you have to get them to buy into that quick. I think that they've been starving in that city in terms of like to go the distance. Just beating York in a shootout and going to semifinals, like it's for me subpar with what they have on paper. They have to be competing with the Forge and Calvaries. So hopefully this coach coming in, he understands what's at stake and he pushes the team to go there.
Yeah, and it's been a bit yo-yo, right? Because they go on and win the regular season a couple of years ago, to then missing the playoffs and beat at the bottom, to then finishing third in the standings, right? Like I guess a little bit of finding that stability as well. But I wonder, Ollie, like when you do look at Forge Cavalry being these perennial contenders and, competing for trophies. And as we know, Cavalry for the first time ever, getting to win that North Star Cup. Do you think Ottawa is most likely the next club to get some hardware here? Do they strike you as that club where you're like, okay, I mean, Forge Cavalry, you're never going to count them out. Who's that third best team right now?
I think it's them. It's very early. Like some clubs are just kind of a blank page right now in terms of their roster build for this season. So it's tough to say. But when you just look at the spine, they've got like Ingham, Didic, Aparicio, hopefully Blue Tabla you can consider among that this season as well. That as a starting point, I think is probably after Forge and Cavalry the best in the league for me.
Okay. You feeling the same, Jordan? Or do you think there's another team that's sneaky in?
It's tough, right? In the CPL with 8 teams, but I think they have the most expectation, right, to be there, the splash that they made. But you look at, this is a call out to York, finished 4th. Pacific, for the longest time, you thought were always going to be there and kind of have it fallen off the horse a bit. This is a call out for other teams to say, they want to be the third best team or the team to go and compete for something this season. But I guess on paper, you have to put Ottawa.
Yeah, well, and we'll see how the new coach does. Speaking of Ottawa's, as we stick there in the NSL, we know that they're going to be launching this year in April, and it appears that a former national team player, and I guess kind of coming out of retirement here, would be Desiree Scott, has signed with Ottawa.
Skulls.
Yeah, they did. They actually did a great release. Shout out to their content team, right? The video that they put out announcing her signing, the Destroyer. We know that's her nickname, and I'm wondering just what kind of impact do you think this is going to have on the Ottawa team here, Ollie? This type of veteran presence in Desiree Scott.
Yeah, I think you need players like this in a brand new league. Like, obviously, there's the name recognition and the reputation of Desiree Scott, which, from a supporter's point of view will help. But the biggest thing for me is just you're going to have a lot of players who are entering a pro environment for the first time. And you need players in the locker room and around the club, I think, who set the standards, who know what that looks like, and can basically show the way for everyone else, because some of them won't know. They won't know the standard that's required, the type of behavior that's expected at that level. And so having, as much as a coach can preach it, having an actual role model in the locker room, we've seen it in the CPL, I think it's priceless for young players.
Mm-hmm. Ollie's so right. The right personality as well. It's not the player that said, hey, I've won gold medals, look at me, listen to what I'm saying, is barking at players that really want to go and lead and impart wisdom and like enjoy that journey. And from what I hear about Desiree Scott, that's what she embodies. What I will say quickly before we get back to you, Andy, I don't pull out of a tackle. You know me. I'll go head first into anything. There's a 50-50 with Des Scott. She can have that. No. Destroyer for real. Like Ollie, you know me. I love a tackle more than anything. I sharpen my 6 studs. Scott, you can have that.
60-40? She can still have it.
No, 100%.
There's a reason why she has that nickname. And here's the thing, to your point, veteran presence, but also like a been there, done that. I believe she won the NWSL title with Kansas City. She's a 3-time Olympic medalist, which of course includes gold. There's different experience from club level to international level that she'll be able to bestow on a lot of these young players who are coming through in the pro game for the very first time. So Desi Scott, part of the Northern Super League. All right, guys, let's wrap things up with our Tony Bet top picks. Jonathan David's Lil takes on Moise Bombito's niece on Friday. Bombito has been sidelined with a groin injury. Could return on Friday, though. Lille, the favorite at -108. Nice, an underdog, +290. What are we looking at here, Ollie?
What do we want here? Let's say a draw. Everyone's happy. Jonathan 1-1. Jonathan David scores, but Bombito still plays pretty well. Keeping him to 1 goal is a respectable performance. Everyone goes home satisfied.
That's what Ollie wants.
It's such a Canadian response.
I want everyone to have fun.
He just everyone at the center circle like this, just swinging arms.
What is wrong with you?
David's gonna score.
Handshake at the ends.
David's gonna score. I say Lille to win 2-0. He's scoring a pen as well.
Okay.
What Bombito did to deserve.
But I think Nice. I think they have the margin on them for sure.
If we stay in Liga, Marseille, Strasbourg on Sunday. Who are you taking in that one, Ollie?
Marseille. Derek Cornelius, hat-trick. Ismail Kone hopefully getting in on the act. Marseille to win this one comfortably.
Cornelius with the hat-trick, though. Okay, Cornelius.
All headers.
Okay.
All headers. That's got to count for like 4 goals.
They're off corners. You know that the center back, they move up corners.
Has that ever been done in the professional game?
It must have.
3
apparently on Sunday
headers.
it's happening.
Wow, that's wild.
If not, first time this weekend.
There you go. Watch out for the Canadians in action overseas. Excited about that. All right, gentlemen, that is Oliver Platt. That is Jordan Wilson. I'm Annie Petrillo. You've been tuning in to One Soccer today. We'll see you next time.